No. This, just that. Hello.
Hello.
All right. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Yes. I'm
Goodness.
excited about this interview. Can you see me? Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna jump right into it. With me tonight, I have Pastor Veronda Schools. So she's gonna tell us about herself while we do a short doodle.
All right. It's going to be a doodle, right? I have no artistic ability whatsoever other than to sing. That's it.
Okay.
Yes. So I am Pastor Veronda Schools, married to Pastor Kenneth Schools. We pastor the Restoration Center Charlotte here in Charlotte, North Carolina. However, I am also second mama to Tamika. She is my daughter's best friend, and she's been in our lives for quite some time. So consider you uh, my second daughter, and I feel so honored for you to have me on tonight. You got the old folk on tonight. I feel
Well, thank you for doing this. We appreciate it. Yes, indeed.
honored.
So we're gonna be talking about forgiveness tonight. So before we get into it, do you have a drink with you that you'd like to share with everyone? All right, what you got?
I just have my decaf coffee with my favorite chocolate raspberry creamer in it.
That sounds real good. That sounds
That's it. It's been raining all day here today, so it was that kind of day.
yeah, okay. Well, I just got my H2O today in my sparkling cup.
Oh,
It's
I love that mug.
thank you. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So we're gonna be talking about forgiveness, and what are you gonna be using tonight to create with us?
Just have the good old handy dandy pen and paper. I'm just doing some doodling, just like you said.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, we're gonna get into this conversation. Okay.
All right.
Forgiveness is usually a very touchy subject. All the definitions that I found were very vague and I didn't really like them. So,
Yeah.
how would you define forgiveness and what does that look like to you?
So I'm the type of person that always looks at like the word. I'm a word person as far as how the word is spelled
Mm,
and what the prefixes mean, right? And so we know that forgiveness is combined, or to forgive is combined with two words, for, which meaning before or for something,
mhm,
and giveness. So for me, it's actually giving, be, making the decision to give ahead of time.
mm,
And it's it seems like kind of really strange because normally when you forgive someone, it's because they've done something. So you don't decide to forgive until they've done something. But
mhm.
the way that even the word forgiveness is spelled, it's a connotation to me that it's a posture you kind of have to live your life by,
Mm,
so that you can always be in the posture to say, I choose to give this person grace
right.
or give them mercy for what they did. So I know that's like a long drawn out answer, but that's
Mhm.
kind of the way that I see it.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree. I feel like it's a process as well. Like, so I like how you put it. I never thought of doing it ahead of time because yeah, people are always gonna do stuff. So why not just let it go before it even becomes an issue? I like that. Yeah. So that's definitely my answer as well. Just letting go, and that's definitely easier said than done, of course.
Yeah.
So, do you think it's harder to forgive yourself or others?
Oh, yourself, definitely. Um, it's always harder to forgive yourself. I think a lot of times the measures that we put on others is because of the way that we see ourselves.
Mm.
So I definitely think it's harder to forgive yourself.
Yeah, I can agree. Like I've come to a place now where I've realized I've just turned 30, so I'm just like I gotta give myself a lot more grace. Like I'm so hard on myself. Like I'm like, oh, I should have done this by the time I was 25, or it's too late now to do this. Like, do you ever do that? Like, it's just
Oh yeah, and I did that in my 30s.
okay.
You feel like if you feel like it's that you've missed out. You look back on the time you graduated high school, and then for some reason when you turn 30, that big 10-year difference from when you graduated high school till then, you kind of look up and the things that you wish you would have accomplished that you haven't accomplished, you're real hard on yourself.
Right.
But trust me, coming from a person that's almost in her 50s,
Oh my goodness.
girl, you got plenty to do. It's only beginning for you. Like, honestly, trust me, you will do more in the next 3 years that you've done in the whole 30 that you've been on earth.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it then. I'll hold you to that. I'm looking forward to it. Is there anyone that you are still in contact with that was really hard to forgive at some point?
Yeah, more than one person, actually. But the one that I can remember the most is actually a family member.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we have a great relationship now,
Mm-hmm.
but for years, there was a grudge there. And it really stifled me for a long time because that person helped make up my identity of who I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked around with a warped identity of myself while in unforgiveness towards this person. You know how you let people take up space in your head rent free?
Oh yeah.
like, like that kind of that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
definitely agree. One of the people that I had a very hard time forgiving as well was a family member, and it's just yeah, just realizing that that person is a person as well, and not just
Mhm.
holding them to this huge pedestal like oh they're my sister or brother, like they're not supposed to do this, like they're
Right.
just people. So yeah. It's definitely hard though. It's definitely hard. So
Yeah, because normally you don't, the people that you don't love don't hurt you to that point. It's
right,
the people that you care about, you
exactly.
know?
Yeah, definitely. So is we already touched on this. So like is forgiveness a continuous process? Like if looking back, is there like a if there's like a list of steps you could give to someone else, like what would you say that would have to start with first to start that process?
Wow, that is a great question. The process for
Mhm.
forgiveness has to start with you looking inward.
Mhm.
Um, and kind of like the question you asked a little bit earlier is it harder to forgive yourself? You have to begin to forgive yourself for even holding unforgiveness towards that person.
Mhm.
So it definitely has to start with you. I
Yeah.
think that would be the first process. And I think once that happens and you begin to kind of unpack that in
Mhm.
your mind, then the second part of what you said, you recognize that there was something behind the action or whatever type of thing was that you felt was committed against you. There
Mm-hmm.
was something behind that that had nothing to do with it,
Right. Right.
you know? And I think when you realize that, then the forgiving part becomes so much easier.
Right.
So much easier. Yeah.
Definitely. It's almost like freeing yourself in a way, like just
Yeah.
letting that off. Like you just feel 10 times much better. Like yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely.
definitely. Like so, okay. Was there? I know you're Pastor Veronda. You know what I'm saying. But was there ever a point in time where you were just like, I'm done with forgiveness. Like, forgive everybody. This is it. I'm done. No more chances. You blew it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was a time in my life where um, I was done with everybody, including God. um,
In there.
especially the time, when I lost my son to cancer.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
I had to, in a sense, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but in a sense, I had to forgive God.
mm,
I was extremely angry. And at the time, I felt like I was living my life for him
mm.
and in purity, and I could not understand why he would take my son.
Right.
I just couldn't understand it. So my relationship with him became really bleak, and anybody mentioning him or having anything to do with him, I
Mm,
didn't want to have anything to do with the church, pastors, anything like that. I was just like, I was questioning his very existence,
yeah.
believe it or not. Believe it or not. And
Wow.
that was one of the hardest parts of my life, but it was also a part of my life that changed my life forever.
Mm,
But yeah, I have felt that, and not just that was just the biggest thing. I've since then it's been hard to forgive people along the way, being done with people.
right.
I'm the type. Listen, or I used to be the type to be done with you quick,
Yeah. Yeah.
really quick. And you know, I couldn't continue to live my life like that. But I went through a stage. I would say a good 3 to 5 year stage of that.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, can you describe what your life was like that time? Like you said, you would like okay, you described you were just done, period, with everybody. I can imagine like that would be so hard to even believe that God exists at that time. I've been at that point in my life before as well. So I felt
Mhm.
heavy and defeated at that time and kind of lost. So can you describe any of the feelings that you had during that time?
Yeah. You just mentioned two of them, heavy, lost. What have I been doing this whole time? Is this just a fairy tale? Like, have I been wasting my
Mm,
time
mm,
trying to do things right and trying to live for a God that, maybe doesn't even exist? Could my son have lived had I
mhm,
done something different? Um, just I it was the darkest feeling in the world. I mean, the darkest and most confused, just super confused.
mm. I,
And yeah, I think a lot of that came from how we're taught in church.
mhm,
Um, I think a lot of times religion, because I would say, even though I'm a pastor, I'm not religious anymore. I used to be. I think a lot of times religion um, puts us in this fairy tale mentality when it comes to God.
Mm-hmm.
And so we believe things about him that are magical,
Right.
and that's really how it is. And so when life like really happens, it's almost like it debilitates us to the point where we don't know what to do because we've been holding on to this figment of
Mm-hmm.
who God is and not really knowing
Yeah.
him. So I know that may sound kind of deep, but really that's what happened. And that's why I said
Mm-hmm.
during that time, you know, I it was the best time and the worst time of my life all at the same time. And the reason why I say it was the worst, of course, obviously, I lost my son. I was confused. It was dark. I was hurting. There was a lot of things going on. But the reason why I say it was the best is because to me, that's when my real relationship with God started,
Mm-hmm.
for real, from a different standpoint.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, it definitely does make sense because I went through a very similar time as well, um where I was just very confused and just upset with God because I felt like you said, I have been chasing this fairy tale, like my dream, like, what God told me to do, my art, this, that, and the other. And then I wind up in a psych ward. I'm like, hey, God, I thought I was doing what you told me to do. I lost my mind. Like, what about all this other stuff you told me? So for a long time, I wasn't creating. I was upset. I just thought, well, maybe, my friends and family members who told me like to get a real job or whatever, this, that, and the other, they were right. Like I shouldn't have did this. I should have just been a doctor, left all this stuff behind. Forget you. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
so for a long time it was very like I was just shut off from just anything that looked like just God, period. Like I don't be around that at all. So
Right.
yeah, like so what got you out of that mindset? Like was it a specific person or time?
It was definitely time. Um, and that time and just sitting in, because grief is so different for so many people. And grief for me when I lost my son, because I was still very young, even though I had been married and had two children,
Mm-hmm.
um, traveled the world in evangelism. I've been to I don't know how many different countries and different things like that. It was a realization of it was that grief and put you in a posture of just rethinking everything.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like um after I stopped being mad, like that was the time. Like after I stopped being mad, it's almost like I felt like God was just sitting there waiting for me to get over myself. You know what I'm saying? Like just get over yourself. Like I'm gonna charge. I'm not gonna charge that to you what you've been saying about me and thinking about me because I know what you're going through. And it's almost like my reverence for him came back, and then it's just sitting there and say, okay, show me what you want me to do now, because I don't know what to do with this hurt, and I still have a child that I have to pay attention to and that I have to, while I'm grieving, I got to make sure she's good. And
Yeah.
at the time, I was in a really bad marriage and he was going through his thing too. I mean, we have both lost our son. I mean, it was his son as well.
Yeah.
So trying to process that and it was so much going on at one time. So I think what made me come to the realization to just kind of come to myself was time. And just sitting and after you finish being mad, like you just start asking questions like, okay, tell me. And that's where I feel like
Yep.
I really started getting answers. And not maybe all the answers that I wanted to hear, but just
Hmm.
kind of the answers I needed to hear.
Yeah, definitely. I can agree. Like so much rage was built up in me that I didn't even understand like
Mhm.
all the things that I was still carrying around, like just from just childhood and stuff or whatever, just different relationships. Like you said, it's just kept picking up different things to carry on myself and blame myself for or whatever. And just yeah, once I stopped being mad, like you said, that's when the questions just started flooding in, like, okay, what do you want me to do? Like, I just wanna do whatever you want me to do. I'm just at that point, like, okay, I just wanna try that again. And like you said, I just feel like God's just like, okay, yeah, I've been waiting for this. Like, come on, let's go.
Right.
Like, let's do this now. So yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Hmm.
So, all right. So I said, what made you finally forgive yourself? You told me about that. So when going through this process, has it ever been difficult to reflect on the true cause of the feelings and what's hindering you from moving on? Like, do you think that's something that's possible while you're going through things, or is that just something that happens once you get older? Like, you're able to recognize, okay, I've seen this before, or how do you think that is?
I think it can happen both ways. I think there's some things that will come to you automatically. But definitely the second half, as you get older and you start really experiencing some things, one of the things that you'll start seeing if you're self aware.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's so, so important to be self aware. Um, if you are not, I guess, saying, if you don't make it a practice to self evaluate,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to always blame others for where you are.
Definitely.
Always. You'll always see it as this has to be somebody else's fault.
Definitely.
Like, you really, really, really have to start self evaluating. And I think that's what I started making a practice in my life. Just start looking at myself. Like when I would go through things. Okay, let me look at me first before I start looking at the other person. Like, what did I do to get here? What could I have done differently?
Mm-hmm.
So that comes when you start to see patterns.
Mm-hmm.
If you're self-aware and you start to see patterns, like if every time you turn around,
Yeah.
every year, you're in the same situation. You're dealing with maybe different people,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the same kind of situation.
Right.
That's when you try to look like these are different people,
Right.
but I'm the denominator. Like, so what am I doing to either attract these people in these situations to my life,
Mm-hmm.
or you're just in denial that something you have something to do with this.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like the law of attraction. Like whatever you're doing is attracting this into your life, and it's a cycle.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think that definitely comes with age because you start to see those patterns.
Yeah. Definitely. I can agree because some things I just look at now that I've done like in my 20s or whatever. I'm just like, okay, like this is a repeat of what happened the year before, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm just gonna stop doing this and stop dealing with those types of people, or see the signs and not even welcome those types of things into my life. And like you said, like,
Hmm.
you start evaluating what's going on. I think you just have
Right.
a shift in your mind of like the things you start doing things differently. You start saying things differently to yourself as well. So you're not attracted
Yeah.
to things anymore. So you shouldn't have to worry about it. So yeah,
Right.
there's always those people and things that sneak through the cracks. So you know,
Mhm.
where
Exactly.
how to evaluate those things when they come.
Right.
sure.
Exactly.
So there's a saying that when you seek revenge, it's like drinking poison and waiting around for the other person to die. Do you believe that this is true for unforgiveness as well?
Yeah, I do. Unforgiveness is self-torture.
Hmm. Ah, that's
Um,
yeah, definitely.
yeah, it really is because a lot of times the person that you're holding unforgiveness towards has no idea. And they are living their best life. And you are like, and every time you see them living their best life, you get more and more angry and
Yeah.
hold more and more of a grudge. And it's not doing anything to them.
Yep.
It's
They don't have.
tearing you apart. Yeah, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I used to be the type of person where I would obsess about just whatever, just the smallest things or the smallest little argument with one of my so-called friends or whatever. And I would talk to them later and they were like, oh, I just thought you went away for a few days or something like that. I'm like, I was mad at you. I was mad at you. And you didn't even
And
feel
that
my
makes you
wrath.
wonder.
Right.
Yeah,
You didn't even feel my wrath. So now I want to be more mad because you didn't feel it the first time. So yes, it's just torture. I'm like, I'm tired of having headaches, getting up.
yeah.
Like I'm tired. I'm tired. Like you're not even mad. I'm killing myself. So you're right. You're right.
And
Definitely.
trust me, that comes with age. Age teaches you that to just get over it because they are already over it.
Right. Definitely. So do you think forgiveness is now an essential part of your mental health practice and why?
Absolutely. Um, I think it's the most important part of your mental health
Hmm.
practice. Um, it takes a lot of energy to hold unforgiveness.
Yeah.
A lot of energy. It weighs you down. In some instances, you can't sleep.
Mm.
Um, you can't really truly be happy.
Yep.
Um, it's such a mental poison,
Hmm.
um, and it's not profitable at all. Like there, nothing good comes out of unforgiveness, and so for that reason, you start having unforgiveness can lead to depression, and anxiety, so those mental health things that we deal with depression and anxiety,
Hmm.
unforgiveness is like one of the chief things that can lead to those things.
Yeah.
um so absolutely it is totally, it's a poison to your mental health. And it's definitely one of those things, if anybody listening to this later or anything, if you're dealing with that, that's one of those things that you need to get rid of right away. You're worth more than that.
For sure.
That's like put yourself in a mental prison, really.
Yeah. Definitely. Like I feel like when you hold it in your heart, you're definitely continuing to alter your perception and just
Yeah.
make your reality as negative as possible. So it's not going to be any better. I'm telling you from experience. Like, I thought I had let some stuff go from when I graduated from high school. I mentioned that I was admitted to the hospital for my mental health. I was talking about that stuff in the hospital. Why am I
Wow.
talking about that? I'm 28, I'm 27 years old. That happened when I was 18.
Right.
You gotta talk these things out, like, and you never know what you're holding on to, like we said, until you sit down and evaluate, like, hey, why does this keep happening, or why do I keep treating myself like this, or feeling like this? Probably because
Yeah,
you're holding yourself hostage. So definitely, yeah.
exactly.
So
Wow.
how do you suggest that someone dealing with unforgiveness moves on in a healthier way? Like, I know we said a few things, but what if it's just like this person can't bring themselves to see themselves any different? Like it's just that bad. Like what would you say to me? And I mean, this should be easy for you because when I got out of the hospital and stuff, like you were one of the first people that I came to, like you guys and girl chat, like that definitely broke me out of being in my own bubble of negativity. So like what do you suggest to other people to do?
Right. Well, first, let me say this. You are a walking, living testimony of overcoming that.
Thank
Like,
you.
literally, anybody who encounters you, who comes in contact with you, they are literally seeing the product of, coming through that. A lot of people in the spiritual space or whatever, I would say. I'm just going to use spiritual because, like I said, I'm not religious. I don't subscribe to religion. I have a relationship with the Almighty. But a lot of people frown on therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I think if your situation is that dire where you cannot let it go,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know how to deal with that on your own, you need to get counseling and therapy.
Definitely.
You need somebody to link up with so that, like, for instance, it's like looking in a broken mirror,
Mm-hmm.
right? You won't put that mirror down, you won't change that mirror out. But when you go and you seek counsel, they can show you a mirror that is not broken,
Right.
and then you begin to see yourself differently. And then you'll recognize, oh, wow, I've been looking through the wrong kind of mirror
Right.
all this time,
Yeah.
you know? But sometimes it takes somebody else
Mm-hmm.
showing you. And I really think that, I mean, whether you're getting it from your pastor or whether you're getting it from a professional, even if they're your pastor, make sure they're professional.
Yes, yes, yes.
I can't even ascribe people to go to
Yeah.
pastors anymore because, you know, but yeah, but you need to seek some kind of counsel because, that's what I chiefly believe, that God has us here on the earth for. We need each other.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need another person to show you a different perspective. That's where I would start. If you can't seem to shake it yourself, that's where I would start. Just talking to someone else.
Yeah. Definitely a fresh pair of eyes on your
Yes.
situation is definitely needed if you feel like, you can't figure it out by yourself.
Hmm.
So, have you ever hurt someone and had to gain their forgiveness or trust back? And how did you go about making amends with them?
Absolutely. That's a really good question too, because it really causes me to reflect. I think there's been a number of times where I've done that.
Hmm.
Um, and always, I don't think I've ever, maybe a couple of times, but I don't think I've ever intentionally done it.
Hmm.
I think it's always been unintentional. I remember one of my girlfriends, um, I had gotten remarried,
Hmm.
and we were living in the same city, and this was a person that was like a sister to me. I mean, when I went through my divorce, she was there for me, her and her family, there for me and my daughter.
Hmm.
I stayed with her and her mom for a while, and but she was always in my eyes had a good life. She had gotten married by then, wonderful husband.
Hmm.
They were just great, great people. So I was remarried, doing my thing, and me and my new husband, whom you know now, Pastor Kenny, had just started going into ministry. Just kind of living our lives, and we kind of lost touch. And I reached out to her one day because I wanted to have a girlfriend's brunch. I wanted to bring like I have six really, really, really good girlfriends that,
Mhm.
we don't talk to each other all the time. We live in different states and different things like that, but I know that I can call on them at any time, and she's one of them. And so I called her and I was like, hey, I miss you. I wanted to invite you, to come have brunch at my house and blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. And she was always very outspoken. This was never a person to ever keep things from me.
Mhm.
Then she went in on, how she was upset with me
Oh.
because she hadn't heard from me
Mm.
and that I was just living my life and all of these great things had happened and everything and she hadn't heard from me and she was right. She
Mhm.
was absolutely right. But my reasoning was I didn't want to bother her. I felt like she was living her, she was having new babies, so here I am thinking, I'm going to give her that time,
Yeah.
and that space to build with her new husband, having a new baby, all of that stuff.
Mhm.
And she was thinking, I wanted you to be there for
Mhm.
every bit of it. And she was really upset with me and let me have it.
Wow.
And at first, I was like, getting a little upset. I was like, well, you could have called me,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, but then just hearing the hurt in
Mhm.
her voice and knowing how much I loved her.
Yeah.
I got, I got off the phone and I told her I was sorry on the phone and she was like, okay, well, I forgive you, but don't let that much time go by
Mhm.
again. But she let me have it though, you know? And so, so I got off the phone and then it just really, really hit me how hurt she was. So
Mhm.
I called her back
Yeah.
and I apologized again, but I apologized from the perspective of I really understand that I hurt you.
Yeah.
And that was never my intention.
Mhm.
So even though I had already apologized, I kind of apologized because she was hurt. And I was like, wow, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
But thinking about it afterwards, now I was apologizing because I realized that I hurt her.
Wow.
And then when I to her that second time, it just brought us so much closer together.
Yeah.
And really let me see, wow, the whole time that those great things were happening in her life, she was thinking about me.
Mm.
Where are you?
Right.
I don't know. You know, and
Mhm.
that just took our friendship to a whole nother level. But that was an example of me hurting someone and not even realizing,
Yeah.
you know.
See, wow, that's interesting that you mentioned that with your friend. I went through kind of a similar situation, like, but me and my friends at the time, like in 2019, like my mental health went to crap. So again, I went to the hospital, this, that, and the other. And during this time, I didn't know that my best friends were going through hell as well.
Mm,
So I was mad at them for not being there, not showing up. How could you? I was in the hospital. How could you not know? Like, and the whole time I talked to one of them that I've known since like seventh grade. I talked to one of them right after it. She was really upset, like you said, like really upset with me. She didn't say anything about it. But then we talked later, and she's like, well, she just had a baby or whatever. So she's like, I was going through postpartum. And I'm like, whoa, like I didn't even know that you were going through this, that, and the other, and I'm up here being upset with you. My other
yeah,
friend's going through like whatever she's got going on. I didn't know she was going through these life changes. And, thank God now, like that brought us, a lot closer together. But
right.
that's really tough. Like you never know what other people are going through. So again, that's like we said before, just showing grace and just understanding. Like we're
Yeah,
all people, we're all going through stuff. We got to be here for each other, definitely. So that,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And recognizing that too.
Mm-hmm.
When people do crazy stuff to you, it's something behind it.
Yeah.
Whether what they're going through or what they just a learned behavior, but
Mm-hmm.
it comes from somewhere. Um, and having that perspective, and as you get older,
Mm-hmm.
you will continue to see that, and it will give you more. I used to say to my mom lets her grandkids get away with every, like literally stuff that she would have tore us up for. She has so much grace when it comes to her grandkids.
Yeah.
And that shows me an example of how you get when you get older.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, I understand what's behind that.
Right.
I'm not even gonna go.
Right.
But it seems unfair. It's like, oh my goodness, you're gonna
Right.
let them play
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. For
with that?
sure.
Oh good.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
that with my mom as well. She treats my nieces and nephews like little angels. And I'm like, what? What? Like, we'll get snatched up for that. Like, for sure. Pop this some more. Like, you just let her talk to you like that. Just don't understand. For sure. Definitely.
Exactly.
That makes me look at another situation that I've just been reflecting on. Like, one of my close friends as well, she was also going through a lot at the same time. And I was really upset with her, for not coming to check on me. And she was right there. And then I just thought, like, I just recently lost my dad or whatever. So I've been going through a big thing where I'm like, I wasn't there for him. Like I should have been there. I should have been right there when he passed away. This, that, and the other. And then I'm just like, we used to watch a lot of TV together, a lot of different movies and all that stuff. So a lot of different shows I've been seeing. Like it's been harping on forgiveness. Like it's okay. Like it's all right. So I definitely feel like he's like, all right, like it's okay. Like you're all right.
Yeah.
Like I know for a fact, like he didn't want me to see him like that, and I couldn't bring myself to look at him like that. So I was just like, okay, well, I have to think about how my friends see me as well. Like most of the time, like to two of my friends that I'm talking about, I was the strong one, the happy one, like, you know what I'm saying? So for me to be broke down and going through all this other stuff, they're just like, well, how am I supposed to act? How am I supposed to live? Like, what do you think I'm supposed to do? Like, I'm supposed to
Right.
come and see you doing all this, and then you want me to flip out too? Like, what's gonna happen? So I literally had that conversation with one of my friends the other day. So I'm just like, yeah, like I definitely thought about that. Like you guys couldn't take to see me like that, and I understand that. So I forgive you. Like I understand. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. And you never know how much your friends look up to you.
right,
Um,
right,
you can be their anchor and not even know it.
right.
Um, and it's like sometimes I feel like, and it's not a burden or a weight on me,
Hmm.
but I feel like a lot of times the way I go through stuff is for somebody else.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to make sure I get it when
Hmm.
I go through this time so that I can help somebody else. I mean, literally, that's the way I look at the death of my son.
Hmm.
Like, okay, God, I don't understand why you allowed my son
Yeah.
to pass away. I do believe that I'm going to see him again. I
Hmm.
don't understand it. I miss him every day, no matter how long it's been. However, somebody else lost their son.
Hmm.
And if I can be of any strength to them whatsoever, even just by relating,
Yeah.
maybe it's the reason I went through that.
Right.
So you have to also be a glass half full type person and not a glass half empty. You've
Right.
got to start looking at things from the perspective of I'm gonna gain from this. This is gonna make me grow no matter how bad it is. And even when someone does something, someone wrongs you, or
Mhm.
you wrong someone else and they don't accept your forgiveness. You
Right.
got to be good with that too,
Yes.
because that happens sometimes. You
Definitely.
can come, you can be sincere, you can say you're sorry, and they don't. accept your forgiveness, that's when you got to make sure you forgive yourself.
Right.
Because sometimes even that can put you in bondage. When you don't, when they don't accept your forgiveness,
Yeah.
you can't even be worried about that. You have to make sure, listen, I know I've forgiven you,
Yeah.
and I'm going to give you time to accept my forgiveness, but I'm definitely not going to let your unacceptance of my forgiveness hold me in bondage.
Yeah.
Because I've already forgiven you and I've forgiven myself, and
Right.
keep it moving. Because sometimes people will play those manipulation games with you to hold you hostage, and you can't allow that to happen either.
Right.
So just, and that's where the forgiving yourself comes in, because if you know that you're good within,
Then that's
I'm
that.
sorry,
Yeah. Right.
I can
Yeah.
move on, but I'm not going to let you hold me in bondage
Yeah.
when I've already apologized to you. And I just got to do better the next time. But if you don't accept it, that's something you got to do.
Right.
That has nothing to do with
You're right. You're right.
me.
That's something I'm trying to be better about myself, because I love so hard. Like, I love so hard. And I'm just dealing with that with a couple of my friends right now. And I'm just like, why won't they just talk to me? Like, why don't they just let me know, like, they're not okay? Like, come on, let's talk. Like, but I'm just trying to be like, okay, well, you'll come.
Yeah,
Like, we'll talk whenever you want. I've said what I had to say, and that's it. So you're
yeah,
right. You're right.
yeah. And also too, that people have seasons in your life.
This is true as well.
Sometimes things happen, and really it's God putting that wedge there because their season is up
That's true.
in your life, and you're going somewhere where if you try to hold on to that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
it'll hinder you from getting to where you're going because you're trying to please that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And no one knows that better than God. No one knows that better than him. And so a lot of times, you know, some relationships you have to let die, but you don't want to let them die in unforgiveness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. But even when you apologize, they accept your apology, it doesn't mean that you can move on the same way. It doesn't mean that you could pick up where you left off.
Right.
It may change the dynamic of your relationship, and you got to be okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're saying this, all I can hear is my dad saying, "Yeah, baby, I told you everybody can't go with you." Like, and I understand this so much more now than because I will always try to bring my friends everywhere, and then everybody can't go with you. And I'm like, wow, they my friends, they're my friends. Like, they can't, and that's just what it is. You have to be okay with that. It's true.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not because of them. It's because God knows how you rely and depend on them.
Yeah.
And he's saying, no, I got to remove that one because you got to start trusting me.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I don't want that to be a negative that everyone can't go with you and it's because something's wrong with them. Sometimes it is,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's because of you.
Right.
You will allow them to, order your steps and he trying to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody can't come.
Very true, man. I feel like I could talk to you forever about this for real. Oh my gosh! Like, again, thank you so much for doing this. We got
You're
one more
welcome.
question, and then we're gonna name our pieces together. So,
Okay.
how do you suggest that others practice self forgiveness and grace daily? I know we said just evaluating inside, but just any other tips you could give us on what we could do.
Recognizing first that unforgiveness will literally kill you. It's a poison.
Yeah.
It does nothing for you. There's no gratitude in it, no reward in it. And it just will hinder your growth so much. And so many negative things come out of unforgiveness. So when you recognize that, then now you got to give yourself over, you
Mhm.
know, to a higher power
Right.
that can teach you how to forgive. And I think it just starts with you,
Yeah.
just forgiving yourself for holding yourself in unforgiveness. We're so hard on ourselves, like literally, especially Black people.
Oh yeah.
We literally are. We have a self condemning, self sabotage mentality.
Yeah.
We are super hard on ourselves. So I think if you just look inward, kind of what we said earlier, and make it a practice to
Mhm.
self evaluate, I
Yeah.
do it every day.
Mhm.
Self evaluate, be very self aware, and then allow God to show you those things in you.
Mhm.
And, you know, if somebody is watching and they're not spiritual, self evaluate. And whatever process you use to do that, do that. But live a life of self evaluation and humility, because humility will allow you to hear out the other person.
Yes.
A lot of times, yes, a lot of times when you can't understand why somebody is holding a grudge,
Mhm.
you got to humble yourself and hear them,
Mhm.
and not just look to resolve it, but hear why they're hurting.
Right.
You know, and don't say, well, I didn't mean to do, I didn't do that. I didn't, but you did to them. That's their perspective.
Right.
So just hear your perspective and say, you know what can I do to make it better? I can't take it back. It happened. How can I make it better moving forward?
For
So I
sure.
think if you start with that, start with being self-aware, start with self-evaluating, forgive yourself, and then, you know, humble yourself
Mhm.
and be teachable and listen.
Yes. Yes, definitely. I love that because I've been doing a lot of reflecting in the last couple weeks, and that's all I've been writing down. That's all I've been hearing. Listen, listen, listen. There's so much more to learn. Like I've just been thinking, like, okay, I've got it all figured out, and then run with that. But it's okay. You don't know anything. You don't. It's okay. That's all
It's
right.
okay.
Hey, that's what's so fun about it. Like, don't take, I've just been so hard on myself, just focusing on the outcomes that I won't even start different things instead of just enjoying the gifts that God has given me and the people that God has given me. Just enjoy it. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for this, Pastor Veronda. We love
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so honored and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
So proud of you. I know this platform is going to grow and blossom into what you want it to be. And
Thank
I'm here to support you 150%.
thank you.
I'm just so proud of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, wait, did I lose her? Oh, okay, cool. All right, still got you. Okay, we got a few more minutes. So let's see your doodle so I can name it and you can name mine.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna name this the seed. I'm gonna name it the seed.
All right.
Hmm. Okay, you gotta send me a picture of that because I got a big plan for everybody. So you gotta send me a picture of that. So here it is
Do.
for this evening. Okay.
Oh, wow. See, you're such a great artist.
I don't know if you
I'm,
can read it.
I see it. I see it. I'm going to name yours Proclamation.
Oh, yes, proclamation. I love that. So if
That's
anybody can't read it, it says forgiveness is unlocking the door to set someone free and realizing you were the prisoner. So I love that
yeah,
proclamation.
that's beautiful. Proclamation.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you again, Mama Veronda. Yes, I love
You're welcome. I love you.
you all out there. Be reposting this and everything Miss Veranda's doing with her wonderful church and her husband. Some awesome stuff they're doing. Make sure you follow them. Love y'all. Peace.
Love you. Thank you.
You're welcome.